Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a response to a pretty controversial post that someone made in a Facebook group that I'm a part of. Here's the post. Well, I called into the Dave Ramsey show to ask if my plan for quitting my job was a good one or not, and he said a big fat no, at least until my business is making closer to what I make it work, even though we would have an extra $12K saved up on top of our 6-month emergency fund by the time I quit. He said I need to prove that I can make real money in the business before I go all in. And as you can see, 121 comments later, I thought that this video would be valuable to you guys because this post stirred up quite a bit in this Facebook group. So first of all, here's my initial knee-jerk reaction to this post. Don't ever take life-altering advice from someone who doesn't know you or doesn't know your full situation. I don't care if it's Dave Ramsey, Robert Kiyosaki, Graham Stephan, or Warren Buffett. Blanket statements, money tips, and different financial perspectives is really all any money guru can offer online or on their radio show. Even here on my YouTube channel, I don't know you. I don't know your particular situation. You should not make life-changing decisions based on a free YouTube video alone. When I work one-to-one with clients, I know their story. They take a personality test before we even meet, and they go through a very eye-opening exercise leading up to our very first session together. And even then, we don't make big money moves until at least our second session together. I will say it one more time and then we are moving on. Do not take life-altering advice from someone who doesn't know you or doesn't know your situation. Second of all, the whole point of Dave's radio show is not to help you make life-altering decisions. This person that called in and asked him if her plan was good put him in an impossible situation. You've got 2 minutes tops when you call in to explain your question. Of course, he has to say the option with the least amount of risk involved. This is not how coaching works. This is how talk radio shows work. He isn't in a position to really gather all of the necessary information and truly run all of the numbers to see if this would work. Is $12,000 enough? And how long is that $12,000 going to last them? What kind of training did she go through in order to start this business? What is the business customer acquisition cost and timeline? None of that. None of that. And I'm not faulting him for it. This is just how radio shows work. Everyone knows this. The point of Dave's radio show is views and laughs and rants. It's a platform where he can be unapologetically vigilant with his crusade against debt. It's advertisement, especially in later years. It's entertainment that you might learn something from. It's not for life-altering advice. And third, if you do even the slightest digging, you'll soon find that Dave usually doesn't give very good advice when it comes to business anyway. Here's a prime example, and I'll link it down in the description bar below, but it's basically where a teen called in who was running a very successful e-commerce store, and Dave Ramsey didn't really understand the situation, he didn't understand the business, and he just came off very pompous, and the things that he said, the advice that he gave didn't really make sense at all. Many examples like that, but my point here is Dave is best in his lane of budgeting and paying off debt. And even though I don't agree with his methods of rice and beans and cutting expenses instead of raising your income, which is probably just a generational difference anyway, but Dave is best at budgeting and paying off debt. The irony, though, and what I have trouble wrapping my head around is the fact that Dave Ramsey did not build wealth by budgeting and paying off debt. Dave Ramsey built his wealth and his platform and his voice by taking a risk and starting a business. And this got me thinking, how many mistakes would I have made if I had listened to Dave Ramsey. If I had been that caller on the end of the phone, which we've already established, the question in and of itself was bad. But that aside, if I had been the caller at every pivotal money moment within the last 7 or 8 years, how many mistakes would I have made if I'd been the caller and listened to the advice of Dave Ramsey? Keep in mind, I budgeted. I graduated college debt-free. So these pivotal money moments is everything since then outside of the very basics. Number one, my first big mistake that I would have made if I had listened to Dave Ramsey is that I would have been investing 15% of my take-home pay with my employer-sponsored retirement plan. And you're probably like, wait, what? How is this a mistake? And I might do a separate video about this whole story because it was a bit of a nightmare. But according to Dave, I should have been investing 15% of my take-home pay with my advisor. In reality, I never invested more than like 5% of my take-home pay, although I knew I should, according to Dave, because I just didn't fully trust my advisor and the person that had been assigned to me through the employer-sponsored retirement accounts. When I quit my job, I parted ways with the advisor, and our last conversation was really, really strange, because she was like, I'm so sorry, I've led you down the wrong path. I'm so sorry that I've wasted these years that you could have been investing elsewhere. And to be honest, I was just totally checked out. I was done at that point. I was burnt out and I was leaving the employer altogether. So I figured it would be a good fresh start on all accounts. After being burned like that, I don't use a financial advisor anymore. Not because I think that I'm better, but I do think that mutual funds and index funds have a lot of pros and cons, and ultimately index funds is what was right for myself and my husband as well. And I know Dave Ramsey really pushes his financial advisors and mutual funds, but I had seen the other side of it and I wasn't impressed, and in fact it did waste a lot of my best years that I had for investing, and now I'm 100% in index funds. Number two, and the second big mistake that Ethan and I would have made if we had followed Dave to a T, is that we would have never bought the house that we are in now. Instead of investing through my employer-sponsored account, I was saving for the most part. And when Ethan and I got married, we bought this house in 2016 with about 6 or 7% down. And some really quick math will tell you that 6% is not 20%, and so we were stuck with PMI. What Dave doesn't talk about very much is that you can get out of PMI by fixing important things within the house and having it appraise higher with a refi. And that's exactly what we did. The house appraised much higher shortly after, and we got a lower interest rate, a shorter loan. We had more than 20% equity within the house, so we had no PMI as well. And now we are just a few short months away from having our house 100% paid off. And thanks to continued increases in appreciation, our house is now worth almost double what we paid for it. And this is so crazy to me to say that everyone needs 20% down before they can buy a house. Completely disregards any creative ways that you can come up with to get rid of PMI, and it also completely discounts increased appreciation. If we would have continued to save and save and save, our continued savings really would have been somewhat diminished by the upward trending house prices. Number three, the third big mistake that I would have made is that I would have never invested in Bookkeeper Launch because we bought it on a credit card and we planned to pay it off over the next 3 to 6 months as I built the business. This was definitely one of the more risky things that we did because Ethan had just completely changed careers and took a significant pay cut to do so. Yeah, Dave definitely would not approve. This program, this investment was a flyer. It was a calculated risk, but I'm so glad that I did it. And you can learn more about my experience with Bookkeeper Launch in that video, but this program just 100% changed my life. This truly was the catalyst that really helped us get comfortable making big moves and investing in ourselves and eventually making big money moves as well. I 100% highly recommend the program Bookkeeper Launch for anyone who's wanting to start and grow their own bookkeeping business. I truly do not know where I would be now if I had not taken the leap and invested in Ben Robinson and his Bookkeeper Launch program. Best decision ever, but it was a risk. Fourth big mistake that I would have made if I would have listened to the advice of Dave Ramsey is that I never would have quit my job in 2017. So 2 months after purchasing Bookkeeper Launch, and I probably still had a little bit of it left on the credit cards, I quit my job cold turkey to pursue the business, not having any clients yet. Another somewhat calculated risk, but this one really just goes back to God wanting me out of that position. And he gave me a lot of peace about leaving in the midst of all of the fraud and deceit. And I was really blessed that I was able to quit and pursue the business. So I quit my job, didn't have any clients, wasn't making any money. I didn't have any intention of working part-time or full-time while I got the business off the ground. And I can hear Dave Ramsey just ripping me a new one right now. He would have laughed me out of the room if I had called into his radio show asking him if I should pursue the business full time. Seriously, he would have made a huge spectacle of it, but it aligned with what I wanted to do, and it aligned with my integrity more than anything else. I knew that I was crazy motivated, and I knew at the time I couldn't stay in that full-time position where I was at teaching. I knew that people needed help with their bookkeeping, and I knew that my skills aligned with those needs and that I would be compensated and that I could make the business work. And number 5 is that Dave would not approve of Ethan and I investing in real estate and using leverage, aka debt, as best we can to do so. We definitely won't be paying cash for any of our properties, and if we can find a lender that will allow us to do so, we won't be putting 20% down either. And that's okay. Hopefully by now you can see with all of these examples that not agreeing with Dave is okay, and sometimes it's even better. Like I said in the beginning, Dave has to give these huge blanket statements that are extremely low risk for everyone. He doesn't know everything. He's just a human, and only you truly know the extent of the risk and what you are comfortable with in your life. It is absolutely 100% foolish to make life-changing, life-altering decisions based on a 60-second conversation with Dave Ramsey or any money guru. Because at the end of the day, Dave Ramsey is not responsible for your decisions. You alone are responsible for your fiscal future. You can't just pass the buck to someone else and then be disappointed when they say what you knew they were going to say the whole time. I hope that above all, this video was encouraging for you and brings a little bit of diversity to financial conversations. If you got value out of this video today, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to my channel for the YouTube algorithm, and I'll see you guys in the next one.